Dear friends, welcome to a new program. I would call today the history of education. Our guest again is Mr. John Mackay, International Director for Creation Research Australia. Welcome, good to see you again.
Thank you, Ron.
We're having a rather interesting subject that we have to still squeeze in a half hour, graciously provided by Alpha Omega TV. We know, this is a fact, that if we are to look for roots for our educational systems, for our education, we should rather check our Bibles and our Christian heritage. Would you comment on that, please?
It is interesting, like, as you know, I've lectured in geology and been involved in geology for a long time, and it is intriguing to note that geology itself did not even exist in the ancient world. Now, don't get me wrong, you know what I mean by mining. You dig up gold, you dig up metal, right? People have been mining for a long time because all that is involved is you have to believe in dollars and cents, you know, and money. You don't care about how the gold got into the rock or where the fossil oil or coal came from. Now, geology as a subject did not even commence until after the Reformation, by and large. And actually, do you know who invented the word geology? See, these words had to be invented.
Yes.
And you made a comment about Christian influence, and this is a classic example. It was the Bishop of Durham who invented the word geology.
Excellent.
Now, the reason he needed to invent that word is that during the Middle Ages, while the academia was controlled largely by the Catholic Church, they had theology. Now, you've graduated in theology, so what's that?
The knowledge of God.
Yeah, the study, logos, the word,
Yes.
the study, theos, God, right? So the study of God. But the minute you start to ask questions about rocks, okay, what are you studying? Well, you're studying the earth.
Yes.
So since the learned languages are then Latin and Greek, if we say theology for the study of God, then the study of the earth must be geology. Which actually does raise an interesting point. If a theologian graduates from theology, who graduates from geology? Should it be a geologian?
Yeah.
Right, but we don't use that word. We use the word geologist. But it does make a good point that these concepts grew out of a Christian worldview. And in fact, if you want to go one step further, why were they not possible prior to the coming of Christianity? Why were they only interested in minerals and money, right? And not in asking questions about the rocks? Basically, the answer has to be that there is another influence in education which is still there, regardless of the influence of Christianity. Now, you've been to a gymnasium?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Do you know what the word means?
It was a sort of school or place where men improve their physical outlook.
Okay, a school is right for a start, but translated literally, it's the place to go naked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
But it's from ancient Greece.
Yeah.
Now, even though, say, the Romans conquered the world and destroyed the Greek Empire, it was really the Greek mindset that conquered the Romans, and they took that wherever they went.
Yes, exactly.
And it's still in our education because we still have gymnasiums,
Yes,
right?
we do.
And we apply it a lot further than they probably ever thought of. But in reality, if you want to see the hindering effect of Greek education, think about the subject we raised, geology. The ancient Greeks had a pagan religion, right? How many gods did they have?
Zillions.
Zillions of gods. And their gods were just like you, except bigger.
Yeah.
I know that's hard to imagine, but it's true, right? Now, their gods, if you could be deceitful, they could be deceitful. If you could play jokes, they could play jokes. So if you put that in your mind as an educator, you didn't bother talking about rocks because the gods controlled the world that was out there. And so the rocks might be there to deceive you. So we know what the Greeks thought about fossils. They said, this is a trick put in the earth by the gods to deceive us. So they left them alone. And if you leave it alone, you can't ask questions. So there's a whole area of knowledge out here which is off limits to you. Now, do you remember the things the Greeks were good at?
They were good at war.
Well, they lost.
Yeah, they were good at literature.
Yeah,
arts.
all the things that happen up here.
Yes.
Philosophy,
Yes.
logic, art, mathematics, right? All the things you have to think about because the gods weren't controlling that, right? Man was the measure of all things. That goes right back to the ancient Greeks. So having said that, whilst it is true that the coming of Christianity has certainly opened many doors of information, sadly we are looking at a system which is lingering on behind it, so that many educators, even the Christian ones, still think Greek. And it shows up in, I guess you can say, almost a parallel system that's hidden behind there. So many Christian thinkers end up going off the rails simply because they were never on them in the first place.
Having said that, we still can say that Europe and the United States, which have both common history, gave the world the greatest intellect. We both know, and our viewers do know, that what has been achieved intellectually has been achieved in a period when the Christian thought came back into its rights. So Christianity in education, great minds, great achievements, industrial, literature, even philosophy, we may think of that. Has Christianity raised education? Is trying Christianity to regain some sort of basis in education?
You've heard the word sophisticated?
Yes.
Okay, it's based on the old sophist school. Now, do you remember, I mean, if I say you're sophisticated, most people take it as a compliment, correct?
Yes, I would not.
Good, because what were the sophists good at?
Well, to talk himself out of someone or into someone.
Just in other words, to make up a logical argument, so that the argument and winning the argument became important, not the truth.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And criminal lawyers master this. The truth isn't the issue. The issue is winning the court case. Now, the problem with that is, of course, the difference between a Christian philosophy of truth and a non-Christian philosophy of truth is that in the Christian philosophy of truth, the truth ends up being a person. The person is Jesus Christ, and therefore his creation, because beyond a shadow of a doubt the Bible teaches that Jesus Christ is the creator, right? And since the creation reflects his nature, we can actually have an absolute discussion of truth, because he is truth, therefore real truth exists on planet Earth. It is not just the consequence of you and I having a logical argument to reach the best theory. Now, the tragedy is science has gotten back to the old Greek concept of what truth is, so that when we teach theories today in science, it's merely an approximation of whatever the best argument is at the moment. I had a student I was addressing the Theological Society at St Andrews University, and he said, but surely what you're doing is saying creation is absolutely true, and that can't be acceptable to science. And I said, why did you say it that way? He said, because science has to have flexibility. We can't have any fixed answers. And I said, well, are you saying that if something is true, then science can't deal with it? And he thought, you could see it in his face, right? And he said, I've never thought of that. Right? In reality, so science has moved back to the ancient Greek sophist way of thinking. So the best theory, the best hypothesis is where we've gotten to. Now, if you want to re-establish a Christian basis of education, then you really have to say, here is what we know to be true, because someone who is wiser than us has told us. In fact, if we want to know what information is, or facts are, or what wisdom is, the Bible teaches that wisdom only comes from God. Right?